on Friday. We're also going to air some excerpts Friday during the radio show that I'll be hosting via Skype from the RV InfoWars command pod in Dallas. But we are joined now by G. Edward Griffin. Sir, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, you don't need any introduction, but you're the best-selling author of The Creature from Jekyll Island. For close to 50 years, you've been exposing the private banking cartel. And I can't think of anybody out there who explains the pressure from above, pressure from below system. People ask me, why would elite bankers, why would they support communists? Why would they support socialists? Why would they support collectivism? And we see MoveOn.org, the White House, all Wall Street financed, Soros financed, pumping millions into co-opting the Occupy Wall Street movement. That's why I'm calling for an Occupy the Fed. And so I want to get your view on that idea, and if you think that's a good one. And then I want to segue into what Carol Quigley and others wrote about, that you made films about, this pressure from above and below. Why do we see so many billionaires supporting collectivism? G. Edward Griffin.
Well, you really raised a good point there, Alex, because there's a tremendous amount of confusion today between having a lot of money and being wealthy and being a capitalist. Those words need to be defined, don't they? Capitalism does not necessarily mean that you're not a socialist. What we have today, let's cut to the chase, is that we have a lot of very wealthy socialists in the world, a lot of very wealthy collectivists. And the old definition of capitalism was more accurate than the new one. The new definition of capitalism is, or a capitalist, is anybody with a lot of money, and doesn't cover it at all. Because the wealthiest people in the world today are not free enterprise capitalists. They're monopoly capitalists. You need to make that distinction. People make their money today in the world not by free enterprise competition, not by producing a better product at a better price, or anything like that. They make their money today by buying politicians and buying political favoritism and sending their lobbyists into the power centers of the legislative power centers of whatever governments there are in the world and getting them to pass special laws that favor them. Money today is made, the great wealth today is made by political maneuvering and favoritism, and that is not capitalism. So when people go out there and they say our crisis today in the banking system proves that capitalism doesn't work, they don't understand any of this at all. They're still thinking that capitalism is the same as wealth. So you're right on target, I think, especially when you want to emphasize that we need to occupy not Wall Street. What is that? Wall Street is a physical location. It's where a lot of brokerage houses are. It's where the banks are centered. But the real problem is the Federal Reserve System. That's the problem. It's a monopoly. It's a cartel that's been given this monopolistic power by Congress. And it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. It's this marriage between corporations and government. That's not capitalism. That is collectivism in its purest form. So when these people say, let's overthrow capitalism, they miss the point, because capitalism has been gone, really totally gone, in the sense of the word that I'm using it, been totally gone since World War II.
Well, that's my point. Exactly, G. Edward. That's what I want you to elaborate on, is that even Ross Perot, who claims he's free market, made the lion's share of his money selling EDS to the government. Exactly. You look at all these big fortunes, it's the monopoly power of government, and one of the clearest examples is Barack Obama and General Electric, the head of his economic council. They, the very day that his new carbon rules went into effect, they were given an exemption, and now they're shutting power plants down all over the country, but General Electric can still operate, and their profits are going way up. I mean, this is so dangerous, and it destroys progress. And then to see the monopoly capitalists using collectivism to destroy their competition, to consolidate power, to see Michael Moore, who's made hundreds of millions of dollars in the so-called free market system, saying capitalism is the problem, not the Federal Reserve. We have a clip of that we played earlier as we went out to break. And he's saying that's the problem. The problem is capitalism. And so people now think monopoly corruption is capitalism, and they're selling them on more collectivism. I mean, isn't that just putting our leg in a bigger bear trap? Because I remember you decades ago talking about this juncture we've now entered, where when the collectivism causes society to implode, the danger is the establishment will use that as an excuse to sell more of the same as the solution, instead of getting back to true freedom. So break that down and the choice we have between the monopoly capitalist and true freedom.
Well, you've said it so well, Alex. All I can do is go over the same ground, and I think it does need to be repeated over and over again because it's foreign to the ears of most Americans. You don't hear this sort of thing on ABC, CBS, NBC, and all that. The major news outlets continue to spew out the same old propaganda about this is a capitalist system. Well, it's not. It's a collectivist system. There's not much difference anymore between the system in America and the system you find in Red China, or in Cuba, or in what used to be called the old Soviet Union or Russia. They have different labels, but once you peel off the label and look down underneath, you've got bedrock collectivism everywhere in the world today. And you're quite right when you say that the advocates of collectivism who want more, and more, create a boogeyman. They say capitalism is what's causing all this problem. Let's have more government intervention. Let's have more government control. Let's have more marriage between corporate and state. Let's have these private partnership relationships with the government. You know, all these things. They're advocating, as you say, more of the same poison that's killing the patient. They're advocating that is supposed to be the medicine for him. And the only real solution is, first of all, the American people have to understand this little trick that's being played on them. And then they have to understand, well, what is the alternative? It's something that, you know, we haven't seen in America in the lifetime of any of us living today. You have to go back to the history books to find out what the solution is. People say, well, you don't want to go backwards. Well, moving backwards in time would be moving forward in ideology. It would be moving forward in solutions, because we would be moving forward to the idea of a free market, not in bed with the government. See, the government loves to come in and say, we're going to regulate these industries for you folks, for the benefit of the population. You know, but what really happens is that the regulators get into bed with the corporations that are being regulated, and then they become one and the same. And so under this umbrella of supposedly regulating industry and the banks, among other things, another industry, and supposedly controlling the society on the benefit, for the benefit of the people, they're actually just protecting the corporations under that umbrella. So we've got to get this in our brains that this is the reality of today. And the only solution to this problem is to go forward to where we were about 80 years ago. I mean that literally. Go forward to where we were 80 or 100 years ago and get the government out of all of these things. Go back to a true free enterprise system where competition is the only thing that will produce the best products, the best service, the lowest prices, the best amount of freedom for the individual. And not that it's without problems, because of course it does have problems, but those problems are minuscule compared to the problems that we have today, which is a result of government control and regulation supposedly to protect the people, when in fact it's to protect the corporations.
Well, very well said. Historically, here's an analogy to be added to what you were talking about going forward to the past. Collectivism, centralized gangs, cartels, letter of marque, all of that goes back thousands of years to the king rats, the strong men, the emperors, all the gladiatorial horrors that and wars that came along with it. Kill and be killed, just a terrible system. The furthest we ever went was the flower of the Renaissance. The greatest extension of it, or the Enlightenment, was 1776, 1789, the American true free market, diverse system. Wasn't perfect because we were still reaching towards more liberty. So it'd be like if I was on a trip to, say, California, and I drove to the California line and then drove back to New Mexico. It wouldn't be that Dallas was closer to California just because I turned back. I had gotten closer to California by driving to the state line, but I turned back. We want to go back to where we were, which was the furthest that we'd basically gone. I mean, that's an analogy off the top of my head, or saying we'd never been to the moon. We need to go back to actually going to the moon, which is the furthest we've gone, because we haven't tried to go forward since then.
Well, I think their point is well taken, Alex. Yeah, we have to go forward because what we've been doing for the last 80 to 100 years is moving backward in history. We've been going back to the Middle Ages, to the element of serfdom.
By the way, that's what the Club of Rome, as you know, speak to that. They're very conscious about this. They say they want a post-industrial world for the general public, high-tech reservations with the elite and government and corporations, and they say they want us back to a feudal state. I mean, that's an official UN Club of Rome dogma.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're doing very well. They're succeeding. In fact, I'd say we're probably more than halfway there already. And the trouble is, it's incremental, and you get used to it, you know. Every year, we lose a significant amount of our personal liberties, and our children coming up have never heard about much of this stuff. So with the passage of a couple of generations, the new generation in place is perfectly content to be living in a feudalist system because they don't know anything better. They think that's the way it's always been, and they're told, well, you're in America now. This is free enterprise because you're in America, right? This is capitalism, right? Wrong. That's the point. And you and I are in total agreement on that. But I'm afraid the people out there on the streets today, a lot of them don't understand that. And so they're angry, obviously angry, and they're justified in being angry. And they're saying, you know, let's occupy Wall Street. Okay, that's good. Now what? Now we've occupied Wall Street. What are we going to do? I don't know. We'll just occupy Wall Street and show them that we're mad. That's it. And somebody will say, okay, then what are we going to do? Get the government involved and take over Wall Street? Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Let's have the government run Wall Street. And, of course, that's what they want to do anyway. Wall Street runs the government. Government runs Wall Street. It's the same thing, folks. There's no difference between those two anymore. It's a
yeah, all it's going to be is more of what we've already seen. The big six mega banks will further use government to shut down their competition, just like we've seen in every other industry. It's incredible. And we've now gotten the list of demands from the group saying that they're the leaders of Occupy Wall Street, run by George Soros. It doesn't reflect the people actually in the street, but the mainstream media is running with the hoax, and it's universal health care, free education, $20 an hour even if you don't work. I mean, the recipe that they've put on the table would drive out whatever jobs are left and fully collapse the system. I mean, this is so amazing that they're giving the mega corporations exactly what they want, a tool to shut down everybody but them.
Right. Whatever's left of the free enterprise system, whatever little increment is left of true capitalism, they're out to destroy it completely. And, well, that's my point. I think the people out there who are justifiably angry about what they see is the responsibility of Wall Street having to do with our economic crisis. Now it comes to the question of what are we going to do about it? They haven't the foggiest idea what to do about it. They're just angry, and they're out there waving their placards, and that's good. But now come along the professionals, as you've so well described, the Soros army, and they're telling him now what the solution is, and as you said, and I've said, it's more of the same. So what do we do about that? We've got to reach those people in the streets. They're good people. They want to do what is right. They need education. They need history. They need leaders, true leaders, and I guess that's our role. We're doing our best.
Well, I would say we're having success because I've got reporters all over the country. Rob Jacobson right now is in New York, and he says the vast majority are Ron Paul supporters in the Fetters. They want to claw back the bailout money from Wall Street. They don't want the system to be Ponzi scheme controlled, but they're not getting any of the mainstream media attention. So the answer is continue to grow the alternative media, but also we're launching a movement to protest the Fed nationwide to point out that they're the real monopoly men. They're the people that got rid of Glass-Steagall, created derivatives. And that's why I'm calling on people to physically occupy the grounds around the main Dallas Fed. I'm going to be up there Friday, but I want folks to occupy it for weeks. I'm going to go to San Antonio and Houston Fed the days after, and then back to Dallas. I think this is going to be part of the shot heard around the world if we're able to really force the attention off of nebulous Wall Street and the free market as if it's the author of our woes and actually put it on the mega cartel. So we're about to end part one of this interview tonight. We're going to continue when the show ends, G. Edward, and tape part two that we're going to air Friday when I'm up in Dallas with solutions and a lot of other key research that you've engaged in. But right now, what do you think of my idea of occupying the Fed, A, and B, what is the end game of these people if we don't stand up to them and they get what they want?
Okay, I think your idea of focusing on the Fed is excellent, okay? But now we're still going to face that problem. A lot of people will go there and they'll say, end the Fed, end the Fed, end the Fed, wonderful. And then the question is, then what? End the Fed, replace it with what? A lot of those same people now are saying, well, we'll just turn it over to the Treasury.